almost dropped my guitar. Hey! So this year I've been doing a lot of reading. This year I set myself one of those targets on Goodreads. I aimed myself to read 35 books. It's the end of November and so far I've read 45, so I think I'm doing pretty well. So these are my top 10 books of 2015. I think like one of them has been written in 2015. All the rest of them have been written in other periods. They were just read in 2015 by me. I haven't put them in any particular order because I don't like being biased, because I couldn't decide between my favourites, so I put them in alphabetical order of last name of the author. So, the first book is Tiger Lily by Jodi, Lynn, Anderson. I read this, I think, in the summer when I was in Turkey, and it was amazing, okay? Peter Pan, which is in fact in this pile, is one of my favourite stories of all times, okay? I mean, that and Alice in Wonderland. But Peter Pan is another one of my favourite classics. All-time favourite. It's just got such a beautiful story. And I should have done these two the other way around. It gives the story in a perspective of Tiger Lily, which is something that is completely different. It's more real. It's not got all this different magic that Peter Pan had, but it felt more like a story about a teenager. It was absolutely fantastic. I remember reading it and completely falling in love with it. Like, I completely fell in love with the characters. And even though it was about Tiger Lily rather than Peter Pan, you fell in love with Peter Pan's character just as much as you fell in love with Tiger Lily's. The next book in my pile is actually Peter Pan by J.M.Barrie. This book was fantastic. But my warning to you is, if you've watched the film and you're expecting it to end the same, it's not, okay? It's got a very different ending from the film, and I've actually found that a lot of stories do that. I've recently found that classics don't always end the way you thought they would. And it's very different. For instance, it has a very sexual act referenced in this book, which I read it and I was like, whoa! I went downstairs and I went, Mum? Whoa! Just whoa. It was completely unexpected, but it was fantastic all the same. Also, J.M.Barrie is Scottish, so I have to have a love for him. Okay, next is a book by a YouTuber called Carrie Hope Fletcher. Her YouTuber name is It's Way Past My Bedtime. The book's All I Know Now. This is a book about growing up. It's a memoir, and it's beautifully written. It's also set up in acts in a play. The title page is called a program. Not title page, the other bit. Contents page. The contents page is called a program rather than a contents page. Okay. I have this bad habit that if I ever read books with a dust cover, I always read the whole book with the dust cover off, because, to be honest, I mean, look at that. It's so beautiful. This book was so fantastic, and it taught me so much about life. So much stuff were quite new to me, and, you know, I just kind of took it as it came. But then this book came out, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to read it, because it sounds interesting. I would have loved to have it maybe, you know, a couple of years earlier. I read it when I was 15. I would have loved to read it maybe when I was 13 or 14, just to give me kind of what I was expecting. Oh, actually, the whole title of this book is actually called All I Know Now, Wanderings and Reflections of Growing Up Gracefully, which I think is a beautiful title. It was just such an intriguing book, and the pictures are beautiful, and it has so many Harry Potter references you can't even... It's very British. She mentions tea and crumpets. I'm pretty sure she mentions the Queen once. Okay, my next book on my list is by another YouTuber. It's called A Work in Progress by Connor Franta. This book wasn't a story, it was, again, a memoir. This was also fantastic. What I loved, it wasn't so much the storyline, didn't really have a storyline, but it wasn't so much the storyline that I loved, it was the pictures, okay? This is got absolutely beautiful pictures. Turtles. I mean, look, that's so gorgeous. The next book on the list, again, is an ebook, but this is the last ebook, I swear. It was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Gaiman, I knew that. By Neil Gaiman. This, again, I read because I absolutely adored the film, and I read this in Turkey again. And I was expecting it to be slightly different. Again, this is a classic, which ended up slightly different to how the movie was, so if you're not expecting any sexual references... But I'll tell you what though, that end bit in the movie, if you've seen the movie, the end bit in the movie when they're in there and she's breaking the glass on them, that doesn't happen in the book. It doesn't, and to be honest, I like the book better. To be honest, I usually like the book better. There's very few times when I don't like the book better. The next one on this series, I know this came out like 2 years ago and everyone, it was all the rage 2 years ago, but now it's like past. I mean, people still love it, but yeah. And the next one is Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now this copy is so beautiful, but it's a bit annoying because it doesn't go with my other copies of John Green's books. This I absolutely adored. This was probably the first book that I read that kind of brought in the older side of young adult reading. Okay, I've read books like, you know, Divergent and Maze Runner and Hunger Games and all of that, and these are young adult books, but they're very different. This is the first young adult book that I've read and I've gone, okay. They talk about smoking, they talk about sex, they talk about, pretty sure they've mentioned lust, which is a word that I'm now getting used to. But it was so interesting, and seriously, plot twist, so much, I think I cried. I can't really remember, I've read so many books. But I'm pretty sure I cried. And if I didn't, then why the hell didn't I cry? Anyway, it was absolutely fantastic and eye-catching, and seriously, the cover's beautiful. Okay, the next book is a personal favourite of mine, which if I had put these in order of how much I love them, would probably be number one. This is The Magician's Nephew by C.S.Lewis. It's the first book in the Chronicles of Narnia. It wasn't first written, but chronologically, it's the first book. It was written like 4th or something. I absolutely adore it. It is by far one of my favourite books of that whole series. I mean, I love that series, but none of the other series is in this thing. But it's fantastic. I love the creation of Narnia. I love the characters Diggory and Polly. I've read it so many times you can hardly believe. I think I stayed at my friend's house, and actually I think I read it on my phone because I didn't have a copy, but I was staying at my friend's house unexpectedly for a week, for a few days, and I was like, okay, downloading books, and I was sitting there and I was like, oh, I'll start reading this. I think I read the first 3 books of the series in the space of about a day. This is the story of a slightly mad uncle, 2 kids, Diggory and Polly, and they find themselves in a world of Chan, and then they come back to the Middle Land, and then they go back home, and then they come back again, and then they go to Narnia, and then Narnia is created, and then they bring the first evil and all that stuff. It was so catching, and seriously, I can literally read this in like 2 minutes. The next book is a lot more recent. It's called We Were Liars by E.Lockhart. My friend at my school, I don't talk to her very often, but when we do, we talk about books. We were talking about books, and I was like, recommend me a book, and she was like, okay, you should really read We Were Liars. I was like, is it good? And she was like, it's fantastic. Oh my god! Okay? Oh my god! Okay, I can remember reading it now, and I remember crying. I genuinely cried at the end. Such a plot twist. But apparently my friend guessed what happened. She hasn't even finished the book, and she was like, she told me what happened. I was like, just finish the freaking book. It was so good. And it's beautifully written. It is absolutely fantastically written. It's about a girl who, I'm going to read you the back, actually, because me trying to explain it wouldn't work. We were liars. We were beautiful and privileged. We were cracked and broken. A tale of love and romance, a tale of tragedy. Which are lies and which are truth? Which is truth? Which is truth? You decide. It was fantastic, absolutely beautifully written. I got this copy from eBay for like $3.99 because I hate buying new books. Seriously. And actually, a couple of the lines were underlined, but I understand why they were underlined. When I saw it before I'd finished reading it, I was like, you can't underline books, okay? You can't sell a book online that you've written in. And then actually, but when I read what was underlined, I just sat there and I went, actually, yes. Yes, you're allowed to underline those lines. It was so good, and it's got such a plot twist, seriously. Either you will go, whoa, well, obviously, or you'll go, didn't see that coming. It is so good. I would highly recommend it. Out of any of these books, Magician's Nephew is my favourite, but if you're a teenager, young adult type thing, I'm pretty sure you'd probably like this more just because I have a very selected taste in books. Okay, I've got 2 books left. The next one is called How to Build a Girl by Caitlin Moran. This one has got a shiny cover because I borrowed it from the library and I have to go back to the library like in 2 days. Anyway, this one I finished 2 nights ago. I remember looking at the thing going, 100 pages, like, oh, nah, I'm knackered. Actually, you know what? Finished it in that night. It is so great. I don't know. At the first, you're kind of like, okay, weird. Because the first lines are, I'm lying in bed next to my brother Lupin. He is 6 years old. He is asleep. I'm 14. I'm not asleep. I'm masturbating. That is the first 3 lines down the first chapter of the book. And I was just like, yes. Not yes as in, actually it was even like a go on girl yes. It was just, it started off in such a way that you wouldn't expect it. It's just like, okay, well I have to read it. I just love books that just catch you straight away. You just read it and you're just like, well I can't put this down now. I have to find out what happened. Not with the masturbation, her whole life. It's about a girl who, is a bit of a nobody, bit of an idiot. She wants to be someone else. She goes from being Joanna to Dolly Wilde. Dolly Wilde, I think, was Oscar Wilde's daughter. I'm pretty sure she overdosed. I'm pretty sure she's a real person as well. Didn't check that, but I'm pretty sure she is. It's just so beautiful. She just becomes someone else. But in the becoming of someone else, she realises that she's becoming completely someone else. There's nothing left of her. So she realises that along the way. She also has sex, drinking, falls in love with a guy who's like 27 or something, and she's like 16. Cute though. It is very perfect. It's very perfect. I realise I'm saying fantastic and perfect a lot in this book, in this video, but that is why I've made this list. Because they are perfect and fantastic. Okay, the last book is the 3rd book in a series because, okay, for anyone out there, all the books are fantastic. But this is my personal favourite, and it's one of my favourite books that I read over this year. It's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. This is the last one because R is after A, B, C, D, F, D, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. O, P, Q. And then it's R. Okay, so it's the last one. But it's by far not the worst one. I was just like, Mum, you need to get me a new copy of these books. She was like, which ones? I was like, all of them. All of them. They're all falling apart just because of how often they have been read. They have literally been read to fall apart. But this is the most perfect one. Mostly because this is the one where Voldemort doesn't turn up. And Voldemort is a brilliant character. Seriously, JK. Not JK as in joking. JK as in Joanna Kathleen. J.K. Rowling. Voldemort is such a perfect character. Okay, I mean he's a dick, but he's such a good character. But he wasn't in this book, and that's one of the reasons I liked this book. Another reason is nobody dies. Sorry if you're halfway through it. I won't tell you how nobody dies, and you can try and work it out for yourself. So that is my top 10 books of this year, and I have to take one of them back to the library and, fix the other one. The other ones are okay right now. But, so that's my top 10 books of this year. I hope you don't disagree too much, and if you haven't read any of them, I recommend all of them, especially We Were Liars. So, that's it. There are other books I've read, and there are other books that are fantastic that I have read this year. I didn't feel they were quite as good as these ones. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big, huge thumbs up. I hope you, as I said, I recommend all these books to you. I'll put a list of the books down below. I'll also put a link to my Alice in Wonderland video because, it's Alice in Wonderland. I feel like I should make a video on Peter Pan. Another time. Bye!